Art and the female. This presentation will focus on the women's arts of the Renaissance from the 1400s to the 1800s. Renaissance art impacted women in many ways. A couple examples of the way that women were portrayed through Renaissance art, the way that women became more relevant and recognized, and the artists who have influenced women's arts during the 15th through the 19th century will be analyzed in today's presentation. So, what were the initial stereotypes of women and how were they incorporated into art? Art highlighted things that were not recognized, like the achievements of women and their living, training, and working conditions. The initial view of women were that they were victims and objects for the male gaze. How were women seen and portrayed in art? Women were shown as individuals who symbolized social and aesthetic ideals. Women were portrayed in many forms, for instance, mythological, historical, heroic, and much more in order to convey beauty. Women were also regarded in their virtue, beauty, and high positions in society. So, how were women physically portrayed in art? Usually, they were portrayed in narrative scenes, domestically, in portraits, real or imagined nudes, and as a representation of the saints. Even though most of the paintings depicted women erotically, they served a bigger purpose than to arouse the viewer. How were women in different social classes portrayed, and how did that uphold the expectations for women? For example, if women were duchesses, they were portrayed with wealth, regal power, and beauty as seen in the portrait of Eleanor de Toledo and her son. However, other females were portrayed as submissive, obedient, and embodying charity and passivity. Here are some examples of the variations portraying women through art. One example of the variations of the portrayal of women can be seen in Sleeping Venus, Venus of Urbino, and Olympia. However, the similarities in the artwork, such as the posture and physicality, they all conveyed the different values for women throughout the period. For example, the Venus of Urbino and Olympia might look similar, but Olympia was extremely scandalous and received backlash. The figure's expression is grim and not mysterious at all. Her unfazed look startled viewers in a negative way, and, at the time, the name Olympia was for prostitutes. Now, compared to Olympia, the Venus of Urbino conveyed sensuality and a nice tone. The addition of the dog symbolizes loyalty. There will be three main Renaissance eras that will be highlighted. The Northern Renaissance. The Northern Renaissance took place in the late 15th century. Nudity was very popular and emphasized during this area of art, which can be seen in The Birth of Venus. The Madonna and Child with Two Angels depicts Madonna as a young mother and compares Madonna to Mary, which is one example of how women were also portrayed as religious figures. The Italian Renaissance. The Italian Renaissance incorporated a more emphasis on religious subjects like the Annunciation and Virgin of the Rocks by Leonardo da Vinci, which portrayed women as religious figures as well. The infamous Mona Lisa also came out of the Italian Renaissance, and the Venus of Urbino, which displays a humanly theme set in a natural setting. It is important to note that Rachel Rousse was a very popular female artist in 1711, known mainly for her still lifes containing flowers or fruits, which emphasizes the shortness of life, and her painting Fruits and Insects. The Rococo era. The point of the Rococo era was to convey sensuality and eroticness. Women were idealized in some portraits, which can be seen in the self-portrait by Lebrun. However, the Rococo era also demonstrated the nooks and crannies of society, especially towards the aristocratic society. For example, in the Tête-à-Tête, it depicts a marriage with a lack of faithfulness, and a wife who lost money while gambling. How were the different eras of women arts similar and different? The women were initially painted to be sensual, virtuous, and submissive, portrayed as being compared to religion as well. However, later on, the portrayal of women became more realistic in the sense that it did not depict women according to the stereotypes of society. It is also important to note some of the popular female artists during the Renaissance. The treatment of female artists. Female artists did not face a promising future in the arts. Expectations of being the supporter and mother for the family overshadowed creativity in Europe during the Renaissance. Only wealthy females had the opportunity to pursue art, but did not have an equal chance compared to men. Most women pursuing art were unemployed and faced being discriminated. How were female artists taught? Females born under a wealthy family were privately taught or were recognized based on their talent. In England, however, in the 19th century, there were art schools that became open to females, such as schools of design and the Royal Academy schools that included art and eventually gave women a somewhat equal chance compared to men. The summary. Women were intended to be sensual and uphold society's values of being motherly and submissive. Female beauty was a widely painted concept through nudes and art. The portrayal of women remained consistent in most ways. Women artists either became famous through wealth or talent, and women were more discriminated against in art, but were soon given more opportunities, especially in the 19th century. This affected the world today because women in art is one important way that women were starting to be recognized as other than just homemakers.